Hey everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about LifePo4 battery charging efficiency.
Oh, sounds exciting.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Our listener today is really interested in the best ways to charge their home battery system. They're kind of weighing the pros and cons of grid power versus solar.
Yeah, it's a hot topic these days.
It is. It is. And they've been doing their homework too, looking into some interesting stuff about um, like whether solar charging is really as efficient as just plugging into the grid, even with all those extra steps.
Right.
And then there's this whole thing about these MPPT controllers.
Right. Gotta love those.
Yeah. So we're going to be diving into what those are all about and also seeing if there's like a sweet spot for voltage when it comes to setting up their solar panels.
Yeah, voltage is key.
It is. It is. So I'm excited to get into all of this. I think our listeners are really going to get a lot out of this deep dive.
Definitely. There's a lot to unpack here.
Absolutely. So maybe we can start with you giving us a little rundown of the basics of these two charging methods, grid charging and solar charging. What are some of the things that stand out to you when you think about these two options?
Well, let's start with grid charging since that's probably what most people are familiar with. The electricity comes from a power plant, travels all the way to your home, and along the way, it encounters some resistance in those power lines.
Yeah, exactly.
So right off the bat, you're losing a little bit of energy just during that transmission process, typically around 5 to 10%.
Oh, wow. So even before it gets to your house.
Yeah, exactly. But once it reaches your home, those grid-tied inverters and chargers that we use nowadays, they're actually pretty efficient.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah, they can convert something like, I'd say, 85 to 95% of that electricity to charge your battery.
So that's not bad at all.
Not bad at all.
It makes you think, like, what's the big deal with solar then, right?
Right.
But I guess solar has its own unique set of advantages, right?
It does.
Like you're not relying on the grid potentially.
Exactly. And that's a huge plus for a lot of people these days.
Especially if you're thinking about, grid outages and all that.
For sure.
So maybe we can delve into solar charging a bit. It seems like there are a few more steps involved, right?
There are. So you've got the sunlight hitting those solar panels, converting it into DC electricity.
Right.
Then that DC electricity goes to the MPPT, or maximum power point tracking charge controller, which, let's just say that's kind of the brains of the operation.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
what does this MPPT thingamagic actually do?
Yeah. Basically, it makes sure you're squeezing every last drop of efficiency out of those solar panels.
Oh, like that.
It optimizes the voltage and current coming from those panels to get the best possible charge for your LifePo4 battery.
So it's kind of like, I don't know, fine-tuning the flow of energy from the panels to the battery.
That's a great way to put it. It's all about making sure those panels are working at their peak performance.
Gotcha. So the MPPT makes sure the panels are humming along nicely. But what happens next? Does that DC electricity get converted to AC to charge the battery?
It depends.
Oh, okay. On what?
On your home setup, basically.
Right.
If, your house primarily uses DC power, which is not that common,
Right.
you can charge the battery directly.
Straight from the panels?
Yeah, pretty much. But if your home is like most and uses AC power,
Mm-hmm.
that DC electricity from the panels needs an extra step.
Okay. Like what?
It needs to be converted to AC first using an inverter.
Right, to match the house.
Exactly. And then it gets converted back to DC to charge the battery.
So back and forth, back and forth. Are we losing a lot of energy with all that converting?
Well, there's always potential for some loss with every conversion, but thankfully, like those grid-tied chargers we talked about, modern inverters are super efficient.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's amazing how far the technology has come. If you look at the whole picture, all the components and potential losses and everything, grid charging usually comes out to around, I'd say, 75 to 90% efficient.
Okay.
And solar charging, well, thanks to those MPPT controllers, it's not that far behind. It sits somewhere around 70 to 90%.
Oh, wow. So they're really pretty comparable then.
They are. It really comes down to your individual needs and priorities at the end of the day.
Right. So it's not just about the numbers, it's about what's important to you, right?
Exactly. Some people prioritize having that readily available power from the grid, just knowing it's always there.
Just that peace of mind.
Exactly. But others, they're all about that renewable energy and being independent, especially if the grid goes down.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Now, in your research, you had some questions about voltage and solar charging efficiency.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Something about how giving a higher voltage input to that MPPT controller can boost efficiency. Can you break that down for us a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So Higher voltage input basically gives the MPPT controller more wiggle room to work its magic.
Wiggle room.
Haha, yeah, it can regulate that power coming from the panels more effectively.
I see.
Now, LiFePO4 batteries, they have the specific charging voltage range they like to stay within, typically somewhere between 14.2 and 14.6 volts.
Okay.
And the MPPT's job is to take whatever voltage it's getting from the panels and step it down to match that ideal range for the battery.
Right.
So if the voltage coming in from the panels is already close to that range, the MPPT doesn't have as much room to make adjustments. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
But if you give it a higher voltage to work with, it can finesse things more precisely and minimize energy loss during that conversion process.
Okay, so it's like giving it more clay to mold, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a good way to visualize it.
So higher voltage input, more flexibility for the MPPT to work its magic, and less energy lost along the way.
You got it. And there's another little bonus with higher voltage.
Oh, what's that?
It actually reduces the amperage in the wires, which, well, it's a bit technical, but basically it means less energy is wasted as heat because of the resistance in those wires.
Huh. It's like a double win then. Higher voltage makes the MPPT happier and the wires run cooler.
Exactly. It's all about those little optimizations that add up.
Right, so it seems like there's kind of a sweet spot then.
There is.
Finding that balance between having enough voltage for the MPPT to do its thing, but not going too high and blowing anything up.
Exactly. Got to stay within those limits.
So how do you find that sweet spot? Is it just trial and error, or is there a more scientific approach?
Well, luckily it's not trial and error. The key is to check the manual for your MPPT controller.
Ah, the trusty manual.
Always. It'll tell you the maximum input voltage rating for that specific model.
Okay.
So when you're setting up your solar panels, just make sure their combined voltage output doesn't go over that limit.
So it's all about matching the panels to the controller's capabilities.
Precisely. It's like finding the perfect pair of shoes,
Right. I get it. Everything has to fit just right.
Exactly. And when it does, that's when you get that peak performance and efficiency.
No, that's what we like to hear. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about the basics of grid charging and solar charging, the role of that MPPT controller, and even how to find that sweet spot for voltage input.
Yeah, and it's all about efficiency.
It is. But, we're not done yet.
Oh.
There's still more to explore when it comes to squeezing every last drop of performance out of our LiFePO4 battery systems.
Sounds intriguing. What else is there?
Well, for starters, we haven't even talked about the wiring itself and how that can impact efficiency.
Oh, right. The wires are like the veins of the whole system.
They are. And we need to make sure those veins are nice and healthy, right? So next time, we're going to dive into all the nitty-gritty details of wiring.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
I am too. And we'll uncover some more of those hidden efficiency secrets.
Yeah, wait.
Me neither. So, until then, stay tuned.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right, so last time we were talking about picking the right voltage for those solar panels.
Right.
But I'm kind of curious about the wiring itself. What can we do to make sure we're not losing energy just because of, resistance in the wires?
Oh, that's a great point. Think of it this way. Shorter wires, thicker wires.
Okay.
They mean less resistance.
Less resistance.
It's kind of like using a wider pipe to deliver water.
Oh, okay.
Less friction, less wasted energy.
Gotcha. So, keeping the wires as short as possible and using thicker gauge wires, that's a good starting point.
Exactly. And don't forget about temperature.
Oh, right.
Those LiFePO4 batteries and those MPPT controllers, they have their own, happy temperature zone,
And they like it just right.
Yeah. And if it gets too hot or too cold, well, they might not perform as well,
Yeah, it can throw things off.
Definitely. So if you're putting your battery system in a garage or a shed, think about ventilation or maybe adding some insulation just to keep those temperatures nice and stable.
Oh, that's a good idea. So it's like we're creating this perfect little environment for these components to thrive in.
Exactly. A stable temperature equals peak efficiency.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got our energy sources, we've got our conversion components, we're optimizing everything. But what about the battery itself?
The heart of the operation.
It is. Does the battery have any, built-in mechanisms to make sure it's being charged efficiently?
You're thinking like a pro. And yes, it does. It's called a BMS, or battery management system.
Okay, a BMS.
It's basically the brain of the battery.
Oh, cool. What does it do?
It monitors and regulates everything, makes sure the battery is safe and happy.
Safe and happy, I like that.
Yeah.
But how does it help with charging efficiency?
Well, one of its main jobs is to prevent overcharging.
Oh,
You
right.
know, that can really damage a battery and shorten its lifespan.
Yeah. Not,
No, not good at all. So the BMS keeps a close eye on the battery's voltage and temperature during charging, and once it hits full capacity, the BMS is like, all right, we're good here, and cuts off the charging current.
so it's like a safety net.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Protecting the battery from getting too much of a good thing.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
So the BMS is working behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly and efficiently.
that's right. It's a crucial part of these modern battery systems.
Wow, this is really eye-opening. I feel like I'm starting to understand all the little pieces that go into making this whole system work so well.
That's great to hear. But hold on, we're not done yet. Remember those manuals we were talking about earlier for the MPPT controller and the inverter?
Oh, yeah, those things.
Turns out they might hold the key to even more efficiency gains.
Wait, are you telling me there are like secret settings or something?
Haha, not exactly secret, but definitely some advanced stuff.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
They often have all these like fine-tuning options that you can tweak to really optimize your specific system.
Oh, wow, so it's like going beyond the basic setup and really customizing things.
Exactly. It's like tuning a high-performance engine, getting that extra bit of power and efficiency.
So where do we start looking for these hidden efficiency treasures?
The best place to start is with the manuals for your specific MPPT controller and inverter.
Okay, each one will have its own unique set of settings then.
Yeah, every model is a bit different.
So time to break out the magnifying glass and get to know those
Mm.
manuals. What kind of things should we be on the lookout for?
Well, for the MPPT controller, you might find settings to adjust the charging voltage set points,
Okay.
maybe some temperature compensation parameters,
Mm-hmm.
even different charging profiles designed for different battery types.
Well, so many options. And what about the inverter? Any hidden gems there?
Oh, for sure. You might see settings related to like idle power consumption.
Idle power.
Yeah, how much energy it uses when it's not actively
Oh,
charging.
okay.
Then there's voltage regulation
Mm.
and even stuff about grid synchronization, which can affect efficiency when you're drawing power from both the grid and your battery.
It's like a whole other level of optimization.
It is. It is. It's about understanding all those little nuances and finding what works best for your setup.
This is awesome. It's like becoming an energy detective, uncovering hidden efficiencies and tweaking everything for peak performance.
Huh, huh. I like that.
Uh,
It's all about experimenting and finding what works best for you.
it's a journey, right?
It is a journey of continuous learning and improvement.
I love that. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into LiFePO4 battery charging efficiency.
It has. It has.
I'm feeling super inspired to apply all this knowledge to my own
Yeah,
system.
that's great to hear.
But before we wrap up, I'd love to get your thoughts on the bigger picture.
Oh, okay.
What does all this mean for the future of sustainable energy? So we've talked a lot about the nuts and bolts of these LiFePO4 battery systems, the technical stuff.
Right, the nitty-gritty.
But I'm kind of curious about the bigger picture. Like, how does all this fit into this whole push for sustainable energy?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. It is. And it's something I think a lot of people are grappling with right now, as we try to move towards a cleaner, greener future.
Absolutely. And understanding how to harness and store energy effectively, well, it's going to be absolutely crucial as we make that transition.
It seems like these LiFePO4 batteries are playing a pretty big role in all of this.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
I mean, they're popping up everywhere these days, especially in home energy systems.
And for good reason. They're safe, they perform well, they last a long time.
Yeah, they really seem to have it all.
They do, they do. And when you combine that with renewable energy sources like solar panels,
Yeah.
well, it's a pretty powerful combination.
Yeah, it's like a match made in sustainable heaven.
Haha, I like that. But it all comes back to efficiency, right?
Right, right. We got to make sure we're getting the most out of that clean energy we're generating.
Exactly. Whether it's optimizing those inverters and chargers or really understanding how to leverage those MPPT controllers, every little bit counts.
It's like we're not just passively consuming energy anymore. We're actively participating in creating a more sustainable system.
I love that way of putting it. It's about awareness. It's about making conscious choices.
It's about taking control, right?
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one big takeaway you hope our listener walks away with?
Ooh, good question. I think the most important thing to remember is that efficiency isn't just about numbers.
Right. It's bigger than that.
It's about understanding the whole system, how
Yeah.
everything is connected.
It's about seeing the forest for the trees.
Exactly. It's about considering the energy source, the conversion process, how it's stored, and ultimately how it's used.
It's a holistic approach.
It is. It is. And I think that's a really powerful concept for people to grasp.
It is. It empowers people to make informed decisions about their energy choices.
Well said. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I've learned so much.
Me too. It's always fun to chat with someone who's so passionate about this stuff.
And to our listener, thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope you're feeling inspired to create a more efficient and sustainable energy system for yourself.
And remember, every step you take towards greater efficiency, no matter how small, makes a difference.
It does. It does. Until next time, keep diving deep and stay curious.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.